Helps us tell our story at the Seder tonight.
Welcome to the Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I say this calls for action, and now.
We had to hurry from the land we were slaves, so we're comets free, culinarily. I needed a matzah.
And who doesn't love some good matzah?
What's a matzah?
Nothing. What's a matzah with you?
We had to hurry from the land we were slaves, so we're comets free, culinarily. We're eating the matzah and the Seder bread. Help us tell our story. At the Seder tonight. Seder tonight.
The mouth, the circle, and the covenant today on the Christian Car Guy Show, right? Unveiling the mysteries of Passover through ancient Hebrew letters. And it is Passover tonight. Like, how cool is it? I think it's beyond cool that, the Jews would count Passover to start at twilight, right? When the sun starts to go down, that's when their day starts. And Passover this year will actually happen on a Sunday. How cool is that? And if you looked at the moon last night, you'll notice it's pretty full because it always comes. Passover does, as actually does Easter. But, the way our calendar works, we don't necessarily celebrate it the same way. But Passover, very significant to the idea that Palm Sunday is happening tomorrow for many of you. But oh my goodness, what God is going to show us through this weekend as we get a chance to go worship in all sorts of different ways. But one of the ways that you can go do that is to go to a Passover dinner, which is called a Seder, if that's the word. So to give you some of the idea of the words that were just described in there, you heard him say that a Seder plate. Well, that plate that happens at the Passover supper, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is got special things on it, like bitter herbs that remind you of the slavery. And it has the green vegetable. It has an egg that has to do with new life and the resurrection and all sorts of neat things. And it helps us tell our story. Okay, that's what they were singing there. This is Jewish people talking about their story, but talk about new life. It all is a picture of what Jesus would bring: the mouth, the circle, and the covenant. And so that is actually the Jewish group 613 that sings all that stuff, Bob. Pretty cool, right?
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Does this have anything to do with from where Easter eggs came from?
I hope so. I know that they have celebrated this for 3,337 years because God commanded it. This is the first feast that has been, celebrated. And it's been celebrated for 3,337 years since Moses, God instituted it through Moses and the law. So here's the deal. The idea of all that and the idea of coming to faith in Christ to some extent is liberty. And so the question today that I would love for you to call in and share is, how has God spoken over you that initiated your liberty? A word, or something that just touched your heart with a piece of scripture, or maybe it was music, or maybe it was your parents telling you the story of salvation. Yeah, Bob?
Earlier, you were explaining the difference between freedom and liberty, and I'm still pondering on that.
But yeah, therein lies a giant question for everybody to ponder. And I pondered it this week a lot because, again, the Jews were set free from slavery, but Jesus was very clear in Isaiah 61 that he was going to provide liberty for the captives. And liberty is a significantly different word in Hebrew than is freedom. And I spent a lot of time pondering and thinking and looking at the different letters, but just to give you the very Reader's Digest version of that from my perspective of what the Hebrew would tell us, is that freedom is like you can do anything you want. You're not under authority of any kind. And so if you truly had freedom, you can go kill somebody, whatever you want to do, you're free. And you're not under any authority. That's freedom. But that doesn't work out so good, and that isn't what God necessarily had in mind. Because if that's what God had in mind, he just could have wiped out Pharaoh, whatever, and taken him out and put him wherever. But that isn't what he told Pharaoh. He said, I want you to let my people go that they may worship me in the desert. In other words, there was a purpose behind that freedom. And like William Wallace would say in his famous speech there in Braveheart, what will you do with that freedom? Well, hopefully you're going to become who you are. And the idea of liberty is actually sort of this flow and a sort of a process of you becoming who God intended you to be. And of course, a big part of that is actually accepting Pesach, accepting the covenant that he is providing with you. So we're going to talk about the mouth, the circle, and the covenant, all these things. That circle is very important to cars. Let me tell you, because it's our wheels. And there's a whole lot of stuff that you may think, what does this have to do with the Christian car guy? But therein lies the opportunity. And we do have a Seder tonight at my church, Gildee Church in Ramseur, and there are tickets right there at ChristianCarGuy.com. If you want to come join us, we would love for you to do that. We're going to go into a lot more detail on all this stuff. And how fun is that? But I would love to hear, really, call us, 866-348-7884. How did God give you a word that initiated your liberty, right? There was just something he spoke to you, okay? I can tell you my initial one. I can tell it very quick, that I was reading the Bible because I wanted to sell more cars, not because I wanted to get faith. I was reading it because I'd read Norman Vincent Peale's book on, how do you get positive thinking. Actually, I was listening to the tape set. And as I was reading through the Bible based on that piece of information, I came on the book of Job. And at the time, I was very, very angry with God because I was like, how could you do this to Job? How could you take out his family? How could you let these people annoy him for all these chapters to go on and on and on about his sin, when clearly the poor guy, you did all this stuff, just, what is up with this? And I was getting angry and angry at God. And all of a sudden, God spoke to me. Here was the word, Robbie, since you know everything that you think you know, why don't you make it snow? I'll be impressed. Bring in the tide one time, and then you can begin to tell me, what it is that I should or shouldn't be doing. In other words, it's those words coming fresh out of the Bible hit Robbie's heart. I call it as a canonizing of the Bible, that there's this cannonball that's headed for your head. And at some point in time, it will humble you to realize that there is a God and I'm not him. It just... And
that's said that in my presence before, and it had a profound effect on me.
It had one on my brother. It had an effect on me forever. But therein lies the issue, is that humility. And so, they spent 400 years in slavery, and but God was speaking words over them in order to give them liberty, in order for them to become who they were supposed to be. And in my case, after I realized there was a God and I'm not him, I realized he had a really, really high standard, which I did not meet. And I needed a savior desperately. And all of a sudden I had a reason to read the New Testament, because I was looking for, how do I get straight with this situation? Right. And then you come across the story of the cross, which is what Passover was picturing, this picture that he was going to paint. And then Jesus at the Last Supper, which was a Seder, it was a Passover meal. They were eating unleavened bread. And so the bread he broke that day was very much unleavened, which pictures this sinless idea. And if you think about it, leaven puffs up. And so when you heard him say they're taking the hamatz out of the matzah, matzah is unleavened bread and hamatz is yeast. And so when you get no yeast, you get no puffery. And so the idea of unleavened bread has to do with your testimony. And we'll get into that to a bit. But Jesus broke that bread, right, and offered people to eat it, which would unite you with Jesus, his communion. But then he took the cup, which is gigantic. If you go to a Jewish wedding ceremony, they're going to drink from this cup, right? The bride and the groom. And he's going to say, this is a new covenant, which has to do with marriage, which has to do with the word Pesach, in my blood, right? Which was that, again, this opportunity to be united with Christ, which is what meant everything to me, as I realized he would die for my sins. So we come back, need your calls, 866-348-7884.
Why was there darkness in the middle of the day 2,000 years ago at Calvary?
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
It couldn't have been an eclipse because it was Passover, the time of the full moon. There was no astronomical abnormality. Jesus Christ hung there in the darkness for 3 hours, bearing the weight of our sin in his body on the tree. The wrath of God was present in that darkness on the Son of God as he died in our place. This is the darkest, toughest hour of all of history, and the greatest why question was asked by the Son of Man, Jesus, when he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The beauty of the gospel is that Jesus Christ was forsaken. He was abandoned so we could be accepted and become sons of God, so his darkness could bring us into the light.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. You get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Somewhere there's a river rushing through the woods while someone rushes through their day. There's a mountain looking up at the sky while someone looks down at their phone. A trail waiting to be walked while someone waits for a latte. This world is full of somewheres waiting for someone just like you. So go see yours at 154 national forests and 20 grasslands. And to learn more, visit nationalforest.org. The National Forest Foundation. See your somewhere.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
A listener writes, Gary, can two people with the same love language have different levels of it?
The more common thing, if people share a love language, is that they will have different dialects of that love language. And I think that's what's going on here. That is, you perhaps like to spend long time in conversations with him, and he is not responding quite as well as you would respond to that. He likes to take walks together and maybe have less conversation, but the two of you are together doing something. So that's just different dialects of the same language. One focuses on talking, the other focuses on being together and doing something together. So I just think you need to ask, what could I do that would communicate love to you more deeply? And do those things. Learn to speak each other's dialect within the common language.
This has been a Love Language Minute with Dr. Gary Chapman. For more answers, visit startmarriageright.com.
There's a heart beating inside of every one of us, and taking care of your heart is critical to a long and healthy life. So, do you eat heart-healthy foods? Get enough exercise? Those are good questions to ask yourself. But here's another one you may not have thought to ask.
Is your heart right with God?
Billy Graham says, as important as it is to keep your heart physically healthy, it's even more important that your heart is spiritually healthy. How do you do that?
If you will come to Christ and surrender your will and your heart to Him, God says, I'll take out the old heart, I'll put in a new one. Are you willing tonight to get a new heart, to lead a new life, to go to heaven?
Discover how God can change your life when you surrender your heart to Jesus Christ. Call our 24-hour prayer line at 855-255-7729. That's 855-255-PRAY. 855-255-7729. We're the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association.
Oh, what shall we do with the middle matzah? What shall we do with the middle matzah? What shall we do with the middle matzah? Early in the Seder. Hide it away, it's the Afikomen. Hide it away, it's the Afikomen. Hide it away, it's the Afikomen. Early in the Seder. Oy vey, let's get some prizes. Oy vey, let's get some prizes. Oy vey, let's get some prizes later in the Seder. Soon may our freedom come to bring us liberty, peace, and fun. One day when the Pharaoh's outdone, he'll let my people go.
So they get liberty so they can have freedom, as we've been talking about today on the Christian Car Guy Show. You know, how has God spoken a word over you that created that liberty? 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. Again, the Seder is a Passover supper dinner, and there they serve matzah. And he said, what are we going to do with the middle matzah? What are we going to do with the middle matzah? And so if you were to sit down at your plate at a Seder that's set out the way it's supposed to be, in my opinion, there would be 3 pieces of matzah there. And so there's one on the top, one on the bottom, and one in the middle. And early in the Seder, they break that middle piece of matzah. This is something the Jews do. This isn't something Christians initiated. Okay, I'm just telling you. And they take that middle matzah, and you might remember Jesus was on the cross he was the middleman, right? Between the 2 thieves. And they break the middle matzah, and then they hide it away as the afikomen, which means the best is yet to come. That's dessert. Okay.
Save your fork.
Right. And the way we hide Easter eggs, they hide the afikomen. And when they say, oh, we get some prizes, in other words, the children are all excited because, you know, they get prizes, and that's going to happen tonight at our Seder, at our church, is I have prizes for the kids that are going to be there, because a Seder dinner is a family deal. And you bring the kids, and part of what they get to do is like an Easter egg hunt, only they're looking for the afikomen. Who are they looking for, Bob?
Looking for God.
They're looking for Jesus, right? You see, the middle matzah, it's been broken. It was Jesus. Now you take it and you put it in this actual afikomen bag, or they wrap it in a napkin, and then they go hide it. Where was Jesus for 3 days? He was hidden, right?
Wrapped.
Right. And right at this time of year, just saying, you know, he was wrapped. Exactly. He was wrapped, and there it is. So hide it away as an afikomen. So you see this picture of the liberty that this dinner is pointing to, and understanding. And you can't help but wonder, man, how do they not see that this, you know, we didn't come up. The Christians didn't give them this idea. They do it. They wrapped it, that middle matzah, in a napkin. You're exactly right. Just like Jesus was wrapped, and they hide it away, and then they find it and they get prizes. Well, yeah, they do. Here's the prize: newness of life, right? And if you believe that he was who he was, you get the whole deal. Is that not cool?
It's deep too. But you're explaining it very, very well, because somebody as dense as me, I'm actually picking up on most of it.
Yeah, well, God, he will make it available. Like, you know, when the student's ready, the master will appear, kind of thing. Like when you really want to know, you know, what does that mean? And it's a lot to do with why they tell the story every single year this time, because the more you tell the story, the more questions you get. And that's why I love having you on, Bob, is you ask questions like, what does this mean? What is that about? And
well, I have to. You know, the only dumb question is the one I don't ask.
Right.
You know?
So when it comes to the matzah, or the unleavened bread, okay, it's described in Deuteronomy as the bread of affliction. And the neat thing about that is, not only is it holy because it's matzah, it's been wrung out, the blood's been wrung out of it. It's a really neat word, matzah in itself, but I'm not talking about that for a second. I want to talk about the word affliction. Now, interestingly, and I never would have thought of this, but the word affliction and testify, if you were to testify in court, in a Jewish court, you would use the same word as affliction. Now, how does that work? Let me explain it to you. I've had to think about this a lot and ponder it. And all of a sudden it came to me, and oh my goodness. You see, in order to have a testimony, which is what you do in court when you testify, you have to have a test, right? And so this affliction, what appears to be affliction, is actually giving you a testimony. It may be good or it may be bad, but your life has a testimony. Everybody's watching you. When the fire happened at 109 New Pullet, right, Mom? Everybody was watching.
Oh, everybody was watching. They handed me a microphone and threw the camera in my face. And what are you going to do, Bob? And there's 30 employees standing behind the camera. Yeah, what are you going to do, Bob? You know, because a lot of people were sure that I'd run, you know, be done. But
well, you were eating the bread of affliction, you see.
It was never an option to quit.
Right. But then God, what happened?
We prayed every day. We changed the way we did things. We were so blessed with weather. I mean, we had no building. This happened January 28th. We had no shop, warehouse, office, none of that. And we had a little concrete where we could kind of do things, but we just had to change everything, the way we did everything. But I think we did it as well or better than we had ever done it. And the biggest part of it is even I could see that Bob's plan was irrelevant. It was going to take a much bigger plan to get us through this. And so we leaned heavily on God and his leadership. And, you know, that's all we had. Sometimes you don't realize that God's all you need until God's all you got. And we had to lean heavily. And people that didn't have strong belief developed a greater belief than they'd ever had. When it rains all night long and quits raining at 7:45, you do a day's work and then it starts raining again at 5:15 or 5:30 that evening. When you're ready to leave, you kind of say, I don't believe I did that, but I'm glad it happened like that. But we had the best weather. We had so many things that went absolutely
What
perfect.
did God speak over you in that bread of affliction? And that became a testimony. 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
We listen to the Truth Network. TruthNetwork.com.
Okay, I'll be right there, guys. Hey, oh, Deb, come on in. I thought you were the radon test guys.
The who test guys?
Didn't you see the paper Sunday? The Surgeon General issued another warning.
Oh, like the cigarette warning?
Exactly. Only now they're saying radon causes lung cancer. For non-smokers like us, radon is the #1 cause of lung cancer.
You're kidding me, right? I have a smoke-free home and my family can still get cancer from radon?
Yep. That's why the Surgeon General says every home should be tested for radon.
But I don't smell any radon in my house.
No, nobody can smell radon. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. It just comes up from underground and seeps into your house.
Oh, great.
No, hey, it's no big deal. Even if they find high levels of radon, it can easily be fixed. My brother just had his house fixed. Now that's the radon test guys.
So how did you find them?
First, you go to the EPA website.
Learn more. Visit the EPA at epa.gov/radon. That's epa.gov/radon.
Mommy, I'll get it. Oh, I'll be right there.
Me too.
Hi, I'm Barry McGuire, author of Ignite Your Life, explaining how to have wholehearted faith regardless of your circumstances. For those of us who are Christians, nothing is secular. Nothing is coincidental. God never says, oops. If you're serving God, he's put you right where you are right now for his purpose, to seek and save the lost. Even if you're in the worst job, stuck in the worst hospital, struggling through the worst marriage or friendship or obstacle, quite frankly, God's either allowed or placed or ordained you to be there for his purpose, not yours. Every bad thing that happens, every bump in the road, every hurdle to overcome, God is strategically orchestrating that very thing in your life at this very moment to use it for his glory. Watch for those God puts in front of you because of what you're going through. Every bad thing that happens to you is an opportunity to share your faith. There are no bad days when you're living for God's purpose. And that's a fact. If you want to have your life ignited, go to igniteamerica.com.
This is Anne Graham Lotz with Daily Light for Daily Living. Humility matters to God. Daniel was lavishly honored by kings for his supernatural wisdom. God revealed to Daniel the meaning of dreams. Angels personally delivered God's answers to his prayers, and God miraculously delivered him from the lion's den. Daniel, whose greatness gave him every human right to think highly of himself, didn't. In Daniel 9:3, Daniel smeared himself with ashes because he knew humility matters to God. It's interesting how pride can creep into our attitude when we pray. We think if we keep all the rules, if we're good, moral, helpful, then somehow God owes us the answer we want. Listen to me. Isaiah 66:2 says, "These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble." Maybe it's time you smeared yourself with ashes. Time to plead with God in deep, genuine humility. This is Anne Graham Lotz.
Jesus once said, "O men of little faith, do not be anxious." Hi, I'm Chuck Swindoll. Sometimes, admittedly, I'm a man of little faith. But then God comes along and provides wonderful encouragement. Maybe you're in school and overwhelmed by studies. Let him encourage you. Or you're busily engaged in rearing a family. Let him encourage you. Or maybe your family's gone, perhaps without a mate, and you're inclined to worry. Let God encourage you. He took care of our greatest need at Calvary, giving us our salvation. You can be sure that God will take care of everything else.
Pastor and teacher Chuck Swindoll. Visit Insight for Living's website at insight.org.
Just lean to the left and we'll tell the tale of how we left Egypt. God split the sea and we walked across with no need for a ship.
But first, before we get to that, there's sons and questions for. Just when you think it's almost done, there's 3 hours more. There's 3 hours more.
For Pharaoh sent men after us, their lives would soon be lost. And we spill wine drops from our cups, 'cause freedom had a cost. 'Cause freedom had a cost. So every year we celebrate our freedom with a smile. With Moses and Ramses too. Yocheved the Levite, the Pharaoh's daughter, and Aaron and Miriam on the Egyptian
Oh, wait, that song's amazing.
They're gifted, right? That is 613, the Jewish group, and they're giving you the idea of what happens at a Seder, of telling that story, of telling yours, Tony. It's literally a testimony, as is the bread of affliction. It's in your story, and I assure you that whether or not you ever speak it, people see it, especially the parts of deep affliction, of things like that again, you think about the story that we're talking about here. These people were in slavery for 400 years. I mean, it's not like they had a little, no, 400. I mean, that's longer than our country's been a country. They were in slavery, and bitter slavery at the end, as they were throwing their kids in the Nile, right? I mean, you couldn't even have a child without worrying about whether or not, it was crocodile bait, whatever. It's like, man, that's affliction. And God heard all that, but you can't help but wonder what's going on. And the more I've thought about it is, man, what was going on is the same thing that probably is going on in your life. God has to get your attention, that it has to do with humility, which is the idea of unleavened bread. Is unleavened bread has no yeast. And what the pains that they go to, the Jewish people do, in order to make matzah. I was telling Bob and Tammy and I, we've been making it for 2 days for the Seder that we have coming up, tonight. And in order to make it right from our perspective, we grind the flour And we grind whole wheat berries. So yes, it's got all the chaff, all that, it's whole grain as it can be. And then you just add a little bit of water. Well, you only have 7 minutes if you're going to make your matzah kosher from the time the water touches the dough until it hits the oven, because again, it has to have no yeast. It has no fermentation whatsoever. And so you got 7 minutes from the point the water touches the flour that you push it down. And you talk about afflicting some dough. I mean, you afflict it with a rolling pin and then you pierce it with a fork all over the place. I mean, it's afflicted. And those piercings, yes, it's very much. And then, you throw it in the oven at 500 degrees. And believe me, the water is wrung out of it, which is what matzah has the idea of wringing out. And it's picturing this that you have been through in your life. And I would love to hear it. 866-348-7884, because at some point in time, right, it gets your attention. Bob went through something I can never think of, but I know I went through losing the dealership, and I went through, cancer, and I went through, being hit by the Jeep. And anybody who knows my life knows that there were plenty of tests in order to create this testimony, right? And it was all a matter of, you can say, but interestingly, even after 400 years of slavery, it still took them 40 years in the wilderness to get Egypt out of the Israelites, right?
It's a whole lot for me to talk about sometimes, but the things that happened when Rob passed, and the things we went through, and the way we were able to move forward after that, and the way we were able to make some positives come from what had happened. And it was just one of the toughest times, but it was another tragedy turned into a great experience. And it's hard to look at your son's death as a great experience, but the help I got from God, family, friends, to move through this with some sort of, I guess grace, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good word.
We moved through it, and we moved forward. And Lori and I were closer than ever during that period of our life. And I'm so glad I had her to walk that mile with. And, it was just, I don't know, it's hard to describe what all we went through, but we went forward. And we kept going forward, and we were able to make some positive things happen. And it was a very, very spiritual part of my life. That was a time that, once again, like in the fire, I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the knowledge of what I needed to do. I had to depend on God, because, it was what I had. And he walked me through that, kept me alive. And I've said it before, so many of people that were really close to me were sure that I would take my life when Rob passed. But, that didn't happen. We're still here. And I've just realized that as fast as time is going by, he and I will be back together in no time. And until we are, thank you, God, for keeping me here and giving me a purpose.
Yeah. If, one of the neatest passages in the Bible for me this time of year is Exodus 6:6-8, because God tells them they've been in slavery for 400 years. And Moses has been told that they're not listening to him, and Pharaoh ain't listening to him. And Moses is kind of like, man, now what? And God tells him in no uncertain terms, between Exodus 6:6 and 6:8, there are 7 I will statements. I will take you out. I will rescue you. I will. And this is God. This isn't Moses. You got to do a bunch of stuff here. This is Moses. Listen to me. I will take you out. I will rescue you. I will redeem you. I will take you to be my people. I will take you into the promised land. I am going to I'm going to become a God to you, and I am going to give you a heritage. And that, in a way, is your own identity. In other words, when I think about what happened, Bob, it's part of the Bob process. It's like what's gone through my life. And like God knew that Robbie needed to go through this, and this in order to become who Robbie needs to become. And in your case, he apparently thought, well, this isn't what I originally had in mind. But here we go. And Bob's becoming Bob. And anybody that knows you well knows that that's a really, really neat friend that has the ability to talk to people that have gone through some horrible things that you didn't have that ability 12 years ago.
No, I was a very reactionary type person, and I don't know, it changed me. The fire changed me. Rob's death changed me. I would have never, I always thought I had advice for anybody, but as far as somebody trying to deal with the death of a child or drug addiction in their family or anything, I don't know that I would have tried to give them much advice on anything like that. But many, many, many people called and sought counsel from me, because of what I had been through. And even to this day, I still speak with people that have lost a child or are dealing with the drug addiction and trying to figure out the best plan. And I get to help. Not the volume of folks I did back a few years ago, but people still come.
Oh, yeah. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 1 comes to life in all our lives, right? The God of all comfort comforts us that we might comfort others with the comfort he comforted us with. In other words, and interestingly, that word is Noah, because Noah is named after the word comfort. And you spell that backwards in Hebrew and you get grace. And so as you were talking about, comfort and grace are very, very connected ideas. And Noah was saved by grace, right? He found grace in the Father's eyes. So were you, and so was I. But man, we need your calls. What's your story? 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Truth Network. TruthNetwork.com.
Why was there darkness in the middle of the day 2,000 years ago at Calvary?
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
It couldn't have been an eclipse because it was Passover, the time of the full moon. There was no astronomical abnormality. Jesus Christ hung there in the darkness for 3 hours, bearing the weight of our sin in his body on the tree. The wrath of God was present in that darkness on the Son of God as he died in our place. This is the darkest, toughest hour of all of history, and the greatest why question was asked by the Son of Man, Jesus, when he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The beauty of the gospel is that Jesus Christ was forsaken. He was abandoned so we could be accepted and become sons of God, so his darkness could bring us into the light.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
The mission of Paralyzed Veterans of America is clear. Accessibility. Veterans who have served and sacrificed the best of themselves deserve access to the best our country has to offer. Access to meaningful employment. Access to the veterans' benefits they've earned. Accessible homes and vehicles. And access to every part of their communities. With PVA staff working inside VA hospitals, no other veterans organization has provided more real-time, ongoing support for paralyzed veterans and their families. PVA is proud to serve veterans across all branches, all generations, and all conflicts. Our nation's heroes fought for your independence. Join PVA in fighting for theirs at pva.org.
Hi, I'm Johnny Erickson Tata, and as we grow older, or when we sustain a life-altering disability, often we are quick to say, I do not want to be a burden to my family. And I understand that. After 48 years of quadriplegia, I can feel guilty and discouraged about burdening my husband, Ken. But when it comes to families, especially Christian families, it is our calling to depend upon one another. In a Christian family, we ought to be able to make claims on each other's lives. That's what families do. That's what they're there for. In a society that boasts individualism, the Christian family shows the world that sacrificial service is normal, that we're not independent, but we are interdependent. That is the beauty of Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, which tells us we fulfill the law of Christ when we, quote, carry each other's burdens. That's what Christian love does. Something to think about today if you feel like you are a burden on others.
Here's Dr. Charles Stanley, keeping believers in touch with God.
The righteous, holy God of the universe, looking down upon a guilty sinner, says, I declare you not guilty, vindicated, acceptable into the kingdom of God. Because having provided a substitute to pay your penalty, and that substitute paying the full consequence of your penalty, which was death, I, because you have been willing to accept him, I have transferred your guilt, your penalty, and your consequence to him. He has been punished for your sin. I declare you not guilty and him guilty. He pays the penalty, you go free. That is the justifying process of God.
For help and hope from God's Word, visit In Touch with Dr. Charles Stanley at intouch.org.
As I look back, I also realized that I had actually lowered the bar when it came to the definition of a great marriage at some point in my life.
Have you lowered your expectations for marriage? This is Focus on the Family Minute, and Paul Westbrook shares the hope he discovered after seeking counseling with his wife, Melody.
And of course, when you lower the bar for a great marriage, it's easier to hit it. And through this, I realized I don't need to lower the bar. With God's help, as we keep him at the center of our lives and our marriage, and as we're willing to deal with our stuff, with our baggage, with our fears, we can have a better marriage we've ever had. Not just a fine, not just an okay marriage, but a marriage, better marriage than we've ever had.
A great marriage is possible. You might have to work at it, but hear more from Paul at FamilyMinute.org.
What has God spoken over you to initiate your liberty today on the Christian Car Guy Show? As we're talking about Pesach or Passover, the three letters of Passover, but what you just heard, if you're not familiar with what he was saying, I love it. This is what he says is, you can dance, you can sing, which there's lots of singing at a Passover Seder. There are lots of beautiful songs, really neat ones that have unbelievable spiritual meaning to them. You can dine, certainly because you're going to be eating the Paschal lamb, or in their case, they're going to be eating chicken. They won't eat lamb again until they eat it again in Jerusalem. And they have 4 cups of wine, right? Did you hear me? He says, drinking those 4 cups of wine. Well, the 4 cups of wine are those 4 promises that are started out in in Exodus 6:6. I just told you, I will take you out. I will rescue you. I will redeem you, and I will take you to be my people. Those are promises. He's going to do it.
When you say take you out of captivity.
Yeah, I'll take you out of bondage. Okay. He's not going to well, he's going to take you out one way or the other. I'm just telling you. He's going to take you out on a date, or he's going to take you out.
I just want a little clarity, you know. That's what I'm here for, clarity.
I love it, but you know, and then he says, "Eat maror." Okay, well that means bitter herbs, and so they're going to eat horseradish. They're going to eat the green vegetable that's bitter, and the idea of that bondage that you've been in your life, which is called sin, and you have a Pharaoh in your life, whether you realize it or not. We all do. His name is Satan. And he, you know, God would really like to have him let his people go. But it's not just like accepting Christ and all of a sudden you're free from sin. I don't know if you've experienced that, but you still have addictions. You still have all these things that you get an opportunity to seek God and to push back into those 4 promises. But if you try to fix those promises, those problems yourself, like addiction and rage and anger and all those things, you know, again, he gave you those 4 promises. I will, because our humility is what's required. We got to go to the cross. We have to die to ourselves. You know, that's the beauty of what's in that.
Trust not your own understanding.
Well, there you go. There you go. And so what I actually started the show with, and I want to speak on for a minute here, is it says the mouth, the circle, and the covenant. And that spells that, in other words, what I said was unveiling the mystery of Passover through ancient Hebrew letters. Okay, so the word Passover that God used in writing out in the book of Exodus is pronounced Pesach if you were to say it in Hebrew. And it's just 3 letters. And that's where you get the word. You can hear it in Passover. You got the P and you got the S. And unfortunately, I don't have the CH sound at the end of it, which would be Pesach, but that's a critical thing. So just to give you these 3 letters, to give you a picture of what we're talking about and the picture that God was going to paint. See, God is the most amazing artist of all time. And part of the way he painted it is through the Bible. And each single letter is a picture, especially in the Hebrew, because it's a picture language. Okay. And so that first picture, that pay, is a mouth. It's actually sort of the face of God. And so when you think about that face, like God, he wants to shine his face upon you, just like it says in the Aaronic blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you, lift his countenance upon you. Well, I got this granddaughter. Her name is Margie. And I was at her father's birthday party with her other grandfather this week. And Margie at this point in time is like 10 months old. And the other grandfather started to get her, he was doing all the thing I was doing, trying to get her to smile, right? He was clicking his mouth and going, and all the stuff that we do, grandfathers.
Yeah, we do act pretty silly in front of the grandkids.
So, and Margie's looking at him like, yeah, right. And then he starts to get in her face. Like when he gets up really close to her, she all of a sudden just lights up like a bulb, man. I was like, and I see this action. I'm like, look at that. The closer he gets to her, the more she smiles. And then she just lighten up as he gets right in her face. And then she takes his lip and goes, and now that's the most fun you ever saw in your life. Right. And so, a little later, we actually went back to Mariah's at my daughter's house and they were showing us some stuff. And so I said, I'm going to try that action with Margie, which was, by the way, my mother's name. It's precious to me that that's her name. So I start getting in her face, and it's exactly the same thing. She just starts smiling like you wouldn't believe. Well, that idea of God's face, if we really understood, if we could only understand, he would love to see us smile. As much as I want to see Margie smile, he would love for you to really smile, and to smile from a very deep place of total joy, which is that pay that's in Pesach. That's what he wants.
It's funny you're mentioning the grandbaby, because last Sunday we went to pick Haven up, and as soon as we pulled up and got out of the car, she was out on the porch jumping up and down and clapping and big old smile on her face. And
it warmed your heart, just was melted, right?
Yeah, what a reward. It's just to have somebody that excited to see me. And if we just look at it, God's always excited to see us, and
yeah, that's the deal. Always. And so that P, that pay, that beginning of the word Passover / Pesach, there you go. The second letter is a 0, it looks like, but it's actually called a somic. That's where you get the S sound in Pesach. And that 0 is literally, I'm telling you, it is the power that holds the planets up in the air. It's gravity to some extent, but it is also the power that holds your feet on the ground. But it's also the power that was the pillar of fire by night. And it's the idea of, and David, when he described this letter, said, my flesh trembles for fear of thee. In other words, this is a force that we can't even begin to get our mind around, that is God. It literally holds the planet up, or the planets up in the universe, but at the same time, he holds you in the palm of his hand. I mean, in a gentle, graceful, like, what?
It's a pretty big force to keep my feet on the ground most of the time. I mean, it's a lot. And
So when
I know I'm a challenge to be married to. Sometimes I'm a challenge to be friends with. Sometimes it's a challenge to even be in my presence, but that's a lot of force it takes to keep.
Well, he's got it.
Grounded.
He has all of that. And that I love the song "Stars" by I'm trying to think of the name of the group, but the same thing. If he can hold the stars in the sky, he can certainly hold my heart, and he does that. And that's that 0. It's also a wedding ring. Okay, that's that circle that you were wearing on your finger is the letter Somic, because it has everything to do with this idea of God giving you a big old hug, because he's supporting you and he loves you. And so the last letter, which to me is just absolutely spectacular, is that CH sound, which is called a het in Hebrew. And that is the marriage canopy. In other words, he is betrothing you. He's saying, let's get hitched. We're going to go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And this is what it's going to look like. You're going to put blood on a cross over your door, right? That's Pesach, and the picture of what Jesus would do. So I hope you have an amazing Passover tonight. I hope you have an amazing Palm Sunday tomorrow as you head into Easter. Think about all these things, how God has given you liberty, right? Thank you, Bob,
Thanks for having me, brother, and thanks for taking time to explain it on a level where I can understand. I think it helps everybody out there. If you get it through to me,
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
It started off as a normal day. I felt fine when I arrived at the plant.
Ruth Junius's life was about to change.
Then I dropped my keys. They kept slipping out of my hand. My arm felt numb. A coworker asked me if I was okay, and I couldn't speak. I started to get scared.
Ruth was having a stroke. People around her weren't sure what to do.
They thought I should go home or lie down, but I knew something was very wrong. I wrote 911 on a piece of paper with my other hand, and someone called for me.
Because everyone acted quickly, doctors at the hospital were able to give Ruth treatment that started to reverse the symptoms.
Within a few minutes, I was talking again. I didn't know a thing about stroke before I had one. Now I make sure that my friends and family know all the signs of stroke so they'll get help fast if they need it.
No stroke. Know the signs. Act in time. Call 1-800-352-9424 for more information. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health.
All right, Miss Castro, can you hear me? Oh, wait, oops. There we go. How about now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, very good. Awesome, awesome. All right, so we will be starting our show in around about 3 minutes, and we're gonna have a good time. Do you have any questions?
Excellent. I love it.
No. All right. Cool. Cool. If you just stay on hold for me 1 sec, and I'll pitch you in when the show starts. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome.
There we go. It's ringing.
Mhm. Hi. Can I speak to Dr. Miller, please? Hi, Dr. Miller. My name is Nick. I'm the producer for the Kingdom Pursuit show, hosted by Robbie Gilmore. How you doing today? Very good. If you just give me 1 quick sec, I'm gonna switch over to the board, and we're gonna get a better sound from you. All right. All right, Dr. Miller, you there?
I'm here.
All right, you sound very good, crystal clear. We'll be starting the show in about a minute and a half. Do you have any questions about any last minute questions or anything?
No, I do not.
All right, awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put you on a brief hold, and when the show starts, I'm gonna bring you right in.
Okay, then.
All right, thank you.
Kingdom Pursuits, where you hear from ordinary people instilled with an extraordinary passion. Together we explore the stories of men and women who take what they love and let God turn their passion into kingdom pursuits. Now, live from the Truth Booth, your host, Robbie Gilmore.
What an exciting day. It's Passover tonight at twilight, and the full moon is there in all sorts of ways that we can see how God uses our passions to build the kingdom. And then tomorrow, how fun. It's Palm Sunday. So as we head into Holy Week, how fun it is to me that we get to have these two guests today on Kingdom Pursuits. Number one, I've got Julie Castro with me, and she was at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. I met her there, and they are doing a film that is unbelievable. She is with Thirst No More Productions and I Am Life, Wonderment in the Womb. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
I am excited to talk with you. And this film is like, what artistic expression of the amazing thing that God does every time you think about it. Every time there's a conception, there's something absolutely spectacularly amazing going on, and you guys you spent a whole movie to try to show that artistically. It's absolutely beautiful, Julie. where did that concept come from?
Interestingly enough, it actually came to me in 2019 when I was at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, and I had a television show at the time, and I kept on seeing this reoccurring theme of people I was interviewing, and it was all about life. And so I thought it was actually a television show. Well, it turned out every time I tried to edit the television show, I was like, nope, nope, nope. And I sat on the idea until about 2021. And a friend and I were praying, and she said, because I knew there was something to do with life. And I have a friend, her name is Julie as well, and she has a prophetic dance team. And from there, when we were praying, it was like, let's show life in a completely different way. People have seen fetus photos. They've seen documentaries of, men and women and their experiences. We've seen protests. We know it's all polarized. What can we do to change hearts and minds towards the beauty, value, and celebration of life? And the Lord gave me to show life the first 40 weeks through dance. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, wait, we got a whole bunch of stuff lined up for you all today with that. And then second up, we have Dr. George Miller. And he has authored an amazing book called The Holiness Experience. And interestingly, he uses the word, and it's evolution. So, Dr. Miller, I found that fascinating. But I got to tell you that holiness is a gigantic, man, like so beautiful and so important to every pastor, so important to all of us. What an adventure God has you on.
Well, about 10 years ago, the Lord led me to write a book called The Holiness Experience and Its Evolution. And the reason for it is because of the community that we live in. I saw many churches that was declining. And we have to remember that our motive is the Great Commission.
Right.
And so we wrote a book, The Holiness Experience and Its Evolution. Then the Feast for Harvest is one of the subtopics, main topic. And we want to say that this book has a step-by-step process of planting new churches and growing existing churches. We feel that the focus will be one that will grow and make all churches healthy if people are willing to come together and work and plan. Okay?
That's beautiful. Absolutely. Well, I know neither of you have been on the show before, I don't think, but
nope, not me.
You're fixing to see that part of my show is, what my audience expects is that we're going to play a little shenanigans before we get into the deeper, more profound stuff. And so, speaking of holiness, right? So part of shenanigans is just simply Robbie's going to tell some dad joke kind of riddles, and you just suffer through it or enjoy it depending on your taste in humor.
Okay.
And if you can guess one of these, that's, oh man, we love it when that can happen. And I've been training my producer for years on how to get these, and so he's gotten pretty good.
Yeah.
We're going to see how he does today. So first up, the Holy Land. We're talking about holiness. So the Holy Land is not, I don't know if you knew this, it's not a fake place. What is it? The Holy Land is not a fake place. What is it? What do you think, Dr. Miller or Julie?
Well, are we talking Israel?
You're right. It's Israel. Oh, yeah.
There's a holy land.
But he is real. Let's take it further. He is real.
Oh, yeah, there he is real. He is. Okay. So here's a little bit tricky.
We could say the Holy Land is where he is.
Yeah, you're right. He is. That is, you couldn't be more right. So this one's a little harder. Why isn't holy water used in vaccines? What do you think, Nick? Why isn't holy water used in vaccines?
Because we are holy.
That's true. That's true. But the other answer might be because you can't take the Lord's name in vain.
Oh,
in
my
vain.
goodness. Oh, my goodness. All right.
All right. Yeah, yes. Now, my personal favorite on the list, before we get to the actual riddle that people can call in and win today. So, what do you call a man who can perform any task to an adequate degree? Again, this man can perform any task to an adequate degree, and he teaches holy women good habits. What do you call this guy? He's a jack of all trades, and he teaches holy women good habits.
Holy women, good habits.
You would call him.
He's a
Is it a nun?
A holy
no,
counselor.
or a priest?
You're close. He's a jack of all trades and a master of none. You got the habit part, and you got the holy women. Yeah, there you go. Jack of all trades, master of none. Just to, really.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, you knew at the end of those shenanigans, Nick knew anyway, that I would have a riddle that you could call in and win today. And so if you can answer this riddle, it'd call in at 866-348-7884. Here it is. What holy day comes tomorrow that features an animal ridden by God that was the best choice, hands down? Let's say this could be an easy one. What holy day comes tomorrow that features an animal ridden by God that was the best choice, hands down? 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. And Nick, if they can answer that riddle, tell them what they'll win.
Absolutely, yes. You'll be winning a prize from our Kingdom Pursuits prize vault. It can get anywhere from a book, date the word calendar, or, we send a backtracker.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
You just don't know what we have in the Kingdom Pursuits prize vault. 866-348-7884. What holy day comes tomorrow that features an animal ridden by God that was the best choice, hands down? 866-348-7884. This will be fun. So we got to go to a break. When we come back, hopefully we'll be taking all your calls about that very easy question. And we're going to get into this amazing book, The Holiness Experience and Evolution, and what we can learn from it, as well as I'm very excited. Wait till you see. It's all at kingdompursuits.com, by the way. The trailer for The Wonderment in the Womb.
From Love Worth Finding, here's Adrian Rogers with the treasure from the Word.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 23 says, "And I pray God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." Spirit, soul, and body. With my spirit, I have spiritual life, and I know the world above me. With my soul, I have psychological life, and I know the world around me. With my body, I have physical life, and I'm related to the world beneath me. When my spirit is right, I'm holy. When my soul is right, I'm happy. When my body is right, I'm healthy. Now, some people think that the spiritual thing is to take care of your spirit and your soul, but who cares about the body? They think that perhaps the body is of no consequence or perhaps even evil. But Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, the Apostle Paul says, "I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies, a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God." The Bible teaches that our bodies do not belong to us, therefore they are to be dedicated to God.
For more about Love Worth Finding and Adrian Rogers, visit our website at lwf.org.
Why was there darkness in the middle of the day 2,000 years ago at Calvary?
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
It couldn't have been an eclipse because it was Passover, the time of the full moon. There was no astronomical abnormality. Jesus Christ hung there in the darkness for 3 hours, bearing the weight of our sin in his body on the tree. The wrath of God was present in that darkness on the Son of God as he died in our place. This is the darkest, toughest hour of all of history, and the greatest why question was asked by the Son of Man, Jesus, when he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The beauty of the gospel is that Jesus Christ was forsaken. He was abandoned so we could be accepted and become sons of God, so his darkness could bring us into the light.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
I see you finally got a new helmet.
I did. Bought it cheap online. Follow me. We'll turn off here.
I'm right behind you.
Watch the cars. They can be crazy.
Patty, no! Are you okay? Somebody do something!
Was this young man hit by a car?
Yes, and his helmet is smashed. It's a brand new helmet.
It's probably a fake.
Fakes cause real harm. You're smart, buy smart. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Welcome back to Kingdom Pursuits, where we hear how God takes your passion and uses it to build the kingdom. So fun today. We have Dr. George Miller and his book, The Holiness Experiment and Its Evolution. Excuse me, not experiment, the Holiness Experience and its evolution. And Julie Castro with Thirst No More Productions and their film, I Am Life, Wonderment in the Womb. And it's such an amazing project. So absolutely beautiful. Again, all those, the information on those, you'll find them at kingdompursuits.com, and links to the film and the information on that, as well as you can just order Dr. Miller's book. Just go right there to Kingdom Pursuits and you can get it off Amazon. In the meantime, we have Kristen is with us, and Pinedale Church has got an event we want to let you know about real quick. So, Kristen, you're on Kingdom Pursuits. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am excited. I love Easter. I love Pinedale Church, and so something's got to be good.
Yeah, we've got a great drama and musical coming up April 19th. We have 2 programs that day, a 3 o'clock and a 6 p.m. Showing of the program More Than Just a Man, arranged by Richard Kingsmore and created by Christopher Mackin and Kimberly Messer. And a really neat story about ministry, life, and resurrection of Jesus, the death. But it's seen through the eyes of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. So it's a neat twist on the story, and it's got some really personal touches at the end. So we're excited about it.
Let me just tell you, I'm excited about it. As you were talking about it, I went, oh my goodness, listen to that. So for a lot of you listening, you may know that my boss and the founder of the Truth Network's name is Stu Epperson, wrote a book, The Last Words of Jesus. Richie Kingsmore, who is the one who apparently is set up the music for this, is an unbelievably gifted. A lot of people that have gone to Calvary for years would know Richie was their worship leader for years and years. Richie is a fabulous talent, and if he did this, I'm telling you, it's going to be he's going to be worth going to. And so it's going to be this next Saturday. That's March the 12th. April 19th, which is next Saturday, right? The day before Easter. It's like Easter Eve slash.
And we are busy today getting the set up and finished and preparing for this, because such a great ministry tool for us. And we are super excited to share the message in this way. And it's a little different twist to it, which we also enjoy. So
that's so beautiful.
We hope you'll come out and join us.
I hope everybody will too. And you tell my friend Richie that Robbie said hi, man. That's awesome. I'm so excited for you guys. That's going to be amazing.
Will do.
All right. God bless. You have a great day, Kristen.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that sounds fun. It's at Pinedale Church again next Saturday, the 19th. I'm sure if you go to their website, Pinedale, you can find out all about it, get tickets or whatever you need. So getting back to Julie, your production, it's, as you said, it's through dance, but there are so many visual things with this dance. Can you kind of explain it? Like what, so you're going to take people through conception to birth? Is that what's going to go on?
And so we basically every scene is approximately 2.5 or 3 minutes long, and we start with conception, where you see a woman holding a hula hoop representing the woman, and you see another woman, and it's all female dancers that are dancing this, and she has like a long silk veil to represent the male. And then we bring the two together, and God is speaking in that moment about, I have called you, my love has called you into being. From there, then we talk about cells multiplying, then the spine begins to develop, and we take the viewer through the process. Now, it is creative, and we've taken creative license, so there might be some things out of sequence, or some things happen simultaneously. So even though, like the spine is developing, the brain's developing, arms and legs are starting to develop, we can only show them sequential. And that is what we have done. And each scene is its own separate dance with its own separate costumes and its own separate props. And I'll give you an example. In the very beginning, when the backbone of the child, the child's spine is being developed, God says to the child, and the woman who is the principal dancer representing the child who was talking, he says, I will be your backbone. And it's a staff.
Oh, wow.
And when the backbone hits the floor, and I don't know, it's just something about this movie. It's God's movie. And he is showing life in a different way, and he's speaking to each viewer however they need to be spoken to. And I just followed what the Holy Spirit told me to do. And so it's about 80 minutes long, so about an hour and 20 minutes, and it has music and it has dialogue between God and the child. And so
go ahead. We got time to cover more of it. Believe me, it's going to be an absolutely amazing experience for you. And again, you can find out about that at kingdompursuits.com. But I want to go back to Dr. Miller, and so holiness itself, back at the turn of the 20th century, right? The holiness movement was huge. And churches were growing like crazy, springing up all over the place. And so it's interesting that you would use that term, and it's kind of cool, isn't it? That can you kind of tell us how that, because I think a lot of people view holiness with a sort of a different lens than maybe God does.
Yes. Well, I'm a member of the Holiness Church, and as I said before, the title of my book is not the Holiness. This book was created out of the examining of this holiness experience. Seeds for Harvest is the name of the book. Kingdom Building for Christ. The idea of it is that holiness challenges young people, connect diverse people population, mobilize committed people, and new churches as a result of the Great Commission that Christ has given. That's where the holiness comes in. The book is Seeds for Harvest, but we want to make sure the public understand that there is a process, there is a great process of planting and growing new churches. The book was written to assist church leaders and developers in focus and direction as it relates to church planting and growth. And when our churches grow, that means the probability that we could touch the citizens of that community and make our world a better place. And that's, if that is the focus of this writing that I did.
Right. So
And
when you talk about planting these churches, like here comes this new pastor, here comes this new ministry, from a standpoint of what do you feel like it should be his key? Obviously the Great Commission, but practically, what is he going to do when he shows up in town?
Well, the thing about it is we got to love like Jesus. We got to live like Jesus. And we got to love the unbeliever. When we show love, that has an opportunity to draw people closer to Christ, to somehow change or convert their behavior into a believer's behavior. And this is a process. It is it's ongoing, and we don't reject anybody, because in time, it's not us that will do the change. It is Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit that could cause a person to be a new individual. And that's my way of answering that question.
Right. And so, to the other question, back to the one I originally said, I said, from a standpoint of holiness, a lot of people don't view it in that lens. And so the first word that probably would not come out of most people's mouths when you mention holiness is love, right? However, God is love.
That's right.
And the word holiness in Hebrew is kadosh, and it starts out with the letter kuf, and that has to do with proximity, how close you get to God. And the closer you get to love, interestingly, the more holy you become. And so I love that you start out with that. I really do. It's absolutely spectacular when I think about it, that how can you miss, right? If pastors would go about trying to love like Jesus, people saw that, it's pretty attractive, right?
That's right. And the philosophy that I have for our church, of course, we started from zero about 10 years ago. And right now we have about 400 individuals that have joined our church. We're not saying that everybody in the church is saved. Everybody in the church have conformed to God. But what we're saying is that when we make contact with those individuals, the long-term goal is ultimately for them to become a believer, and change and follow the steps that Christ has left for us, to love, to obey his will, etc. And so,
that's beautiful. Unfortunately, Dr. Miller, we got to go to a break. Okay. When we come back, we got a whole lot more talking about wonderment in the womb, and again, the holiness experience. But also, I can't believe nobody's called in to tell us what day tomorrow is that features an animal ridden by God.
Well, honey, I think I deserve some kind of reward.
Here, have a pickle.
Thanks. After all, I did find us the perfect house.
Have another pickle.
Thank you.
But remember, then I found out how much our house was going to cost.
Yeah, but then I found us the perfect mortgage. Got any more of these?
Sure, help yourself. But then I found out our perfect house had radon. The stuff you can't see, smell, or taste. And it's radioactive. And it's the second leading cause of lung cancer. Some dream house.
Yeah.
I need 2 pickles.
True. But then I found a phone number to call, 1-800-SOS-RADON, where you can get all the information you need to test and fix a home with the radon problem.
You did.
Yeah. And then I found out we were going to have a baby. So, your study, it'd be a perfect room for my mother.
Right. Now I need a phone number to fix a home with a mother-in-law problem.
Hey.
I'm in a pickle. Did you say baby?
Do we have any ice cream?
Protect your family from radon. Make your home safer. Call 1-800-SOS-RADON. 1-800-SOS-RADON.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. the same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. I overdosed on heroin and I lived. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. My desire to change had finally outweighed my desire to stay the same. I felt powerless for so much of my life. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. For the first time, I finally feel like I'm exactly where I should be, where I want to be.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Kingdom Pursuits, where we hear how God takes your passion and uses it to build the kingdom. You know, the idea of this show originally, and has been, I guess, for nearly 20 years now, is, you know, God puts a word on your heart. And maybe that word is to make a film or to write a book, or maybe to teach a Sunday school class, or maybe you're supposed to teach sailboarding at summer camp or something. God put it on your heart to do it. He takes you on this adventure, and then, oh man, you sit back and you see what, through your obedience, God just blesses your socks off. And so we try to get folks every week that have taken that step of obedience and share where God's used that to build the kingdom. And it's absolutely amazing, and how God has brought so many amazing people over the years. And we would love, always, you know, you can go to kingdompursuits.com, contact me, easy enough. You got somebody that, you know, wrote a book or that did something that just, man, this person is a teacher of special needs people, or whatever it is that you just see. God gave them a challenge. They stepped into it. And so you just reach out to me, kingdompursuits.com. And I would love to have them on. I dearly love to see what God puts on people's hearts and what that ends up being. And along those lines, Julie Castro, like, oh my goodness, if you go to kingdompursuits.com and you watch the trailer for this film, and you see, like, I got to talk to, I think was it you, or did I talk to your partner that is the dance person that I talked to at the NRB? Was that you?
No, it was me.
And the passion that went into this project, like, oh my goodness, it was like, man, if there was a Kingdom Pursuits topic, this one is it. Because what you got to learn, like what God came after you as you were doing this, because like you said, the Holy Spirit was leading you and he touched your heart with these scenes, right?
Oh my gosh, I still weep. And I watch things, and I will tell you that we did a beta screening of the movie in March, and we realized there's some things that need to be done to it. But I look at it, watch the movie, and I'm adding to the script, and I still weep. I'm still weeping. And the interesting thing is, I've even had a couple of testimonies from women in the beta screening who were touched by the Holy Spirit, and they go, something happened. And I don't understand it, but God is healing me. And I'm believing that the Holy Spirit is going to talk to every single person very differently, because God knows exactly where they're at, what they need to be healed of. And I'm just honored and humbled that he would choose me to do this movie, because it is not a Hollywood movie by any means. And so you have to go into it with an open mind, because we don't want to limit God.
But by the same token, the production is excellent. Based on the trailer,
Thank you. Well, and I'll tell you what.
It looks wonderful. I mean, I was really like, man, I can hardly wait.
Well, and I'll tell you, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, because the cinematographer, that was an God-ordained moment how I met this man. He's not even a believer, but I'll tell you what, God is working on
I'll
him,
bet.
and he uses one of the best cameras that you can use in filming. And so, and he had an eye, and he caught the vision of the movie, and that was the key. And when I met him and I saw his reel, I said, oh my goodness. And he listened to us pray every single time before we started dancing. And he heard, and we prayed at the end, and so God is moving, and that's the whole thing. I will tell you, Robbie, that this trailer won first place in San Francisco Art House Film Festival. San Francisco, of all places, it's just like Dr. Miller was saying, you know, his doors are open. This is the audience that we want to reach. It's going back to the Great Commission, right? As believers, we believe in the sanctity, holiness, the value of life. But for those who don't, that's who God's going after. And we just let the Holy Spirit do the rest once they've watched the movie.
That's so beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Dr. Miller, how long ago did God put it on your heart to write this book? You said 4 years ago?
Yes, that's right. And it is, we have worked this book, and it is, I've used the strategies of this book, the step-by-step strategies for planting and growing new churches from scratch. And we have taken a church from zero up to almost 400 people in about 3 or 4 years. And it's steady growing. Now we are expanding. We are getting ready. We have a building project on the go. And it is a way of reaching people who was basically non-believers. They were, I guess, in the street. They were partying, etc. But now they have conformed to the will of God, and we feel that we're going to be, we'll leave a positive legacy as it relates to doing the things Christ's way and embracing the Great Commission. What Jesus said, go and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you, and lo, I'll be with you always. And we are standing on the command that Christ has given, and we feel that we have made a great difference in the community in which I live.
Right. It sounds like it. So where is that church?
It's in the city called Louisville, Mississippi, northeast Mississippi. And it is in a town of Louisville. It's about 50,000 people. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Right. And to see God at work as that church grows, and you see community happen, right? Because if it's based on love, like you talked about, then, when you see one family loving on another family, especially when things come down, then man, God is up there smiling, because we were meant to be in a community, right? We weren't meant to hang out alone like so many people, unfortunately, are doing today, right?
That's right. And one of the things I see is that regardless of what lifestyle the person is in, we go to the person and we show love. And I think sometimes that brings them to a point of being different. It brings them not only closer to God, but it helps them and teach them how to build positive relationship with other people. And in our communities where you have the violence and all of this, it impacts those things. And we are striving to continue to do it. And we just pray that God will give us the wisdom to continue to take them to the next level, because the purpose of us doing this was to grow churches, new church plants. And then we want to teach at the movement that we're in, the holiness movement, our younger pastors to do the same thing.
Yeah, and that's a really, how God just multiplies. That's his at the whole idea of right birth to begin with that you're talking about, Julie, is that it's multiplication, and new life is coming through these new churches, but it's also the opportunity, and so glorious that when you see a church come to life, it's not unlike the film that you're making, right?
Oh, exactly. I'm going to tell you what, the life in general, we don't even realize, and what we've tried to do with this movie is show that the development of the child, this is a human being that is worth keeping. And that person has a plan and a purpose that only God knows. And even in the movie, he starts to show the child. Now, remember, in the womb, we're not really remembering any of this stuff. But then as adults, and it's not only life in the womb, that's what the movie's about, but I'm talking life in general. Listen, I'm 65 years old and I'm producing a movie for the very first time. Listen, the latter years are better than the former, right? And so at 65, here I am doing something completely different that I've never done, but it was God's will. Who would have ever guessed? And if people would understand that, life is not over, even in the worst of times.
We got to go to a break, I'm afraid, Julie. But when we come back, we got a lot more, so stay tuned. Don't want to miss out on any of this. We'll be right back.
Why was there darkness in the middle of the day 2,000 years ago at Calvary?
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
It couldn't have been an eclipse because it was Passover, the time of the full moon. There was no astronomical abnormality. Jesus Christ hung there in the darkness for 3 hours, bearing the weight of our sin in his body on the tree. The wrath of God was present in that darkness on the Son of God as he died in our place. This is the darkest, toughest hour of all of history, and the greatest why question was asked by the Son of Man, Jesus, when he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The beauty of the gospel is that Jesus Christ was forsaken. He was abandoned so we could be accepted and become sons of God, so his darkness could bring us into the light.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
It's time for today's STEM tip. Okay, you know recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A mess.
Welcome back to Kingdom Pursuits, where we hear how God takes your passion and uses it to build the kingdom. And so fun today. Here we are on Palm Sunday Eve to enjoy Dr. Miller with his holiness experience and its evolution, as well as Julie Castro with her film, I Am Life. That's the name of the film. I Am Life, The Wonderment in the Womb. And again, if you go to kingdompursuits.com, you can see a way to get Dr. Miller's book, or you can find out more information on the movie Thirst No More Productions, I Am Life. And Julie, when do you expect now that it's going to be out?
Well, because of the beta screening, we've got some more work to do, but we want it God's way, and this is what he's doing. So I'm going to say within the next 3 to 6 months. I don't know for sure, but it's God's timing. But I am believing that it is this year that it will release. Wonderful.
And of course, you'll let me know, and we can maybe get you back on, and we can talk about, what it's been like since it started out. But we only have a couple minutes in this particular segment, being the last one. I just want to make sure you get said anything that you wanted to say today that you haven't had a chance to say.
Well, what I would say is, please go on and watch the movie trailer, and please share it with others, because we want to get the word out that life is beautiful, that we want to save lives, both physical and spiritual lives. So please share it. And, I'd love to come back on, Robbie, once I know when it's going to release and where it's going to releasing. Listen, this is my faith of walk faith.
Yeah.
Faith of walk.
Walk of faith. That's right.
My walk of faith, because I don't know. That's how I've done this movie. And he brings the funds as I need them. And I just say, okay, Lord, you do what you want to do, and I will be obedient.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. So, Dr. Miller, same question to you. What did you want to say that you didn't get a chance to say today?
Well, I just certainly would like for the public to consider buying this book, Amazon. It is Seeds for Harvest is a book that is really interesting. It gives a step-by-step process of planting and growing new churches. And we feel that this book will seek to help churches to reach out to people other that they wouldn't be reaching out to. And we feel it's a good book, and we feel like it's making a great change in our community in which we live. And we encourage you to buy this book. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, especially for pastors that are, sitting there wondering, what do I do to connect with my new church congregation? Or maybe you've been struggling for some time and thinking, these people had, this kind of success, and you're not in a big, huge city to be growing from 40 to 400, right? If you're up there in northern Mississippi, and so is it sort of a rural community?
Somewhat. It's just a little small town, but then the community, I'm going to say the rural portion of that community is very large. And that means that we have to get out and travel to meet people or to meet them at some of the businesses. And we recruit them that way. So, and we got a lot of youth as well. We must have 400 youth in our church at this time. And so I just want to say to the public, just read this book and just look at the steps that we have taken. You just got to draw close to people, or people who feel maybe ashamed to come to you. You can come to them and show them that they're a valuable resource, and that draws them into the family of God.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And so was there anything that snuck up on you when you were writing that book, Dr. Miller, that God had for you didn't expect when you were writing it?
Well, one of the things I had written a book called I read another book. Now, as I was completing this book came to mind, Seeds for Harvest. The Holiness Experience was one thing, and I wrote about the organization that I'm a part of. But Seeds for Harvest is more of a personal approach to evangelism, personal. And when you can change the mind of a person that was going the other way, it gives you, as a believer, it gives you encouragement to continue on doing the same thing. And so Seeds for Harvest is a step-by-step process of planting and growing new churches. And I believe that bishops and pastors should embrace it, because it'll give you some different thoughts and ideas. I didn't go into all of the strategies and techniques that we use, but this book has got plenty of good information.
That's awesome. That's awesome. As again, every single person that coming into the family is certainly another one for the kingdom. So amazing. Well, thank you guys both so much for being on with me today. It was so much fun, Julie, to talk with you again. And Dr. Miller, you guys were wonderful, just absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
And so now we got a whole lot of truth coming on you in the Truth Network. We got encouraging prayer with Dr. James Banks, followed by the Masculine Journey starts here now at 12 o'clock in Winston-Salem and other markets close by, like in Ohio. And, then that's followed by Man Up with Nikita Koloff. So much truth coming at you on the Truth Network.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being on with us today. I will be making the show into a podcast in about a few hours. More than welcome to anywhere you get podcasts. It's called Kingdom Pursuits. All right. Thank you guys so much.